This is a film about the original layout that I had, the very first layout, and what went wrong with it, what was right with it. I hate videos that it's all still photos. Don't worry about that. This one isn't going to be all still photos. It's only about the first minute and a half. So here's my old layout. This is a HO scale layout. I made this about in 2008. It's basically just a simple loop of track, a Bachmann train. The buildings are almost all scratch built. There's a fishing cannery that I made. It's some houses in Newport, Rhode Island. I took Lynn Westcott's model railroad that grows track plan and just kind of just stuck a loop over the street layout. So I was very proud of this. The problem is that first of all, it only ran so many cars, and then they would become disconnected and just let go. So I know you're saying it's a Bachmann. I really should have gotten an Athearn or something like that. But listen, model trains are model trains. You should be able to buy them. They should be able to work. If they don't work, stop selling them. Make ones that are better. So I was dissatisfied in many ways with this layout. It was too small, and the layout space I had couldn't take a full HO scale layout. So we decided to scrap this one. I ended up selling this and starting over again with an N scale layout. So we took everything apart, and I began the plans for a 5x7 N scale layout, which you're going to see right now. So here's the video. Very grainy in the beginning. All I had was very cheap cell phones. I had flip phones. This was actually filmed on a flip phone, so it's about 14 to 16 frames a second as opposed to 24. It's clearly insufficient, very bad, very grainy, but that's all I had to go with. So these were the actual footage from my first YouTube channel. Now what happened was, once I moved into the new house, I began, I think is actually when I first lived at the old place, I began putting down the track. And then I read somewhere that someone said you should do the scenery first and then put the track down. And I found there's a couple of problems with this layout. There's a couple of areas where the area for the track wasn't smooth. So I stopped, I built up using the woodland scenic stuff, built everything up, and I began doing all the scenery. And then after a while, I was getting nowhere with it, and I was getting frustrated because I wanted to run trains. I mean, that's the whole idea behind a model railroad, is that you actually run the trains. So I began to find, as I was doing this, I stopped everything. As you can see, the scenery looks fantastic, although it's unfinished, and it's really, terrible quality video. But some of this you'll see I actually started using Kodak camera to film this, and then here on this one, once we actually see something, there we go. This is filmed with a video camera I found, and I got one of those little snappy, easy snappy things that you use to take what's on there. So I had the MRC Prodigy Express. Everything was DCC. So this was my first test to see if this actually all ran. Was you can take a non-DCC loco and set it on the track. So I took my streetcar and put it on there, and I've been working on this layout at this point for about 7 years. So, and the trains hadn't run yet. So this is my first actual test, and I was scared to do it. First actual test to see if this whole thing even worked. And later on in this video, you actually get to see the first time I ran the trains. And then within a month, I ended up taking this layout apart. And I'll tell you all why in a few minutes. So here we are, getting it plugged in. Had to reset the MRC. Whenever it trips, you always have to reset the MRC just to be able to use it. So I love the MRC system. It actually worked. So it tripped again. Got to redo it again. Could have possibly been because of a short. So the bottom line of it is, if you take a regular loco and you sit it on the track and you turn on the power, it'll make a buzz, and there you go. You can see that I had it was Loco 3, and it worked. So did that. So now this was going to be my first actual test on my layout of a real train. This was all I had that was good, was a diesel. I had a 484 that was beautiful, but it wouldn't run. So This is my first actual test. Got to reset the MRC. You unplug it and then replug it, and then it's good to go. And gonna change it. Change the direction. Get it reset. Zoom! And that was the first time trains ever ran on this layout. And probably after about 4 or 5 weeks after this, I ended up taking this layout apart. I was not happy with the N scale. Like the HO scale, it really couldn't pull a whole lot. So this was exciting for me. So forgive me for the fact that I'm sitting here just basically running the track back and forth, back and forth. This is the first time I'd actually gotten the trains running. Here's some of the takeaway lessons I had from this whole thing. Lesson number 1. Get your track down, even if you just got a Plywood Pacific, just get your track down and get it running so you can run trains right away. Lesson number 2, start working on the scenery after that. Number 3, make sure your track work is good track work. I had Atlas Flex track because that's what everyone said you needed. In some cases, I got some micro engineering stuff, and that was actually fantastic. Lesson 4, make sure you're doing everything right. Take your time and get it right, because it's going to be terrible trying to go back and do it over again. So do it right the first time. After this, I tore this layout apart. One of the problems I'd noticed when I was doing it is that when I first started the layout, I could see N scale just fine. After a few years, by the time I actually got this test done, my eyes had changed. I could no longer see N scale fit on. So now I had to decide, was I going to do HO or was I going to go to Lionel trains? Someone had given me a Lionel Scout in 1948. It's a number 1001. I was kind of leaning towards Lionel, and getting a Lionel set for the Christmas tree basically made the decision for me because you could pull a lot of trains. It ran beautifully, everything lit up, all the stuff you had to do manually and took a lot of work, in N scale, HO scale that was very hard to do. All of that Lionel already has done for you. From this point on, I decided, okay, I'm going to work with Lionel. I'm going to get all Lionel, get rid of all my DCC stuff. We gave away almost all of this. I'll be selling the DCC controller and all my Tortoise switch things because you don't need it. Lionel comes with all that built in automatically. You don't need switch motors. You don't need to drill under for switch motors. It's all part of the switch machine itself, and it all is contained in the legacy system and the turnouts themselves. So I hope you enjoyed this retrospective, lessons learned. I hope that will help you in your pursuit of the hobby. So this is a glimpse in the future, because obviously what I did here in N scale I can do just as well in O scale. And I'll take you every step of the way through that journey, from getting the bench work made, building the layout, getting the track work done, wired up, wiring up the legacy controller, all the sensor tracks, showing you how to do all this, and hopefully that'll give you something new you can try with your own layout, and we'll grow together. So hope you enjoyed this retrospective of my old N scale layout, and we're looking forward to the new future. Thanks. See you next time. Remember, like, subscribe, comment. It helps us. Helps other people to find this page. Helps other people find these videos. Keep supporting us, and maybe soon, someday in the future, Lionel will be giving me trains to try out.